Hi and welcome to a look at Phantasy Star Online 2. This is a game it's only out in Japan at the moment. It's releasing on PC, PlayStation Vita and some smartphones as well. It's only out in Japan at the moment, but there is a Western release, at least for the PC and possibly Vita versions, announced for probably around late 2013, maybe mid 2013. It may be out earlier than that, but I doubt it. So for reference, I am using the Japanese version of the game here, just to show the game off. The idea of this video really is just to show people a rough idea of the game ahead of the Western release, just to make an informed decision if it's possibly the game for you. It's not so much an MMO in that all the fields are separate games. It's more like a game, I suppose, like the original Guild Wars, where you would actually, when you went into a mission, it's actually a separate area rather than all being open world. There are 3 basic classes in the game, which cater to each way you want to play. There's Hunter, which is a melee class. It uses things like swords, partisans, and there's also a weapon called wired lancers, which are sort of like bladed whips. Then you've got Ranger, which is your ranged class, as the name suggests, which uses things like rifles and grenade launchers. And then there's a class which I'm playing as at the moment, which is Force, which is basically Phantasy Star Online 2's mage. So I can use all different techniques, as they're called in this. Obviously the mage is like the most fragile class, but it's got quite high damage potential, and it does have the ability to support your teammates as well with restorative magic. I'll just go over briefly how the game's set up. I'm actually controlling the game with a PlayStation 3 controller at the moment, using a program called Motion Joy. Just if you use Motion Joy, then you can actually hook up a DualShock 3 to your PC and use that as your controller. But it does fully support wired Xbox 360 controllers as well as other PC controllers. There is also the option to control it with the keyboard and mouse as well. Just I prefer to play it with a gamepad. I think it's the kind of game it is, it suits a gamepad more. Basically, this is your camp ship that you go to after you've selected a mission to run. You've got a medical centre over here, which basically sells drinks that provide buffs to your character for the mission. Then here you've got a terminal which allows you to invite NPCs to your party. These are the story NPCs that I've unlocked so far. So you select one of them, add it to your party, and they will accompany you for the rest of that mission. And just as easy, you can take them out of your party as well. And then you've also got another tab here, which is actually cards, and they're called partner cards, of your friends' characters. So if you get your friends' partner cards, you can actually invite them to your missions as NPCs. So for example, if I invite this guy, he'll actually join me for that mission, and that's actually one of my friends' characters. So he would actually join me for the rest of the mission, which I think is a pretty cool feature, really. Did feature in a previous title, but it's nice to see that it's been brought over to this game as well. Then you've got a basic shop which sells recovery items, and obviously you can sell items there as well. A storage box, and that portal over there is just to take me back to the main ship, so I can go and select another mission if I wanted to. And that on the left hand side is just another counter to select a mission. And this down here is the portal that starts your mission. So I think the best way to show this game really is to just jump straight into a mission, play through and just explain things as I'm going on. So this area is the Lolita Mines. It's basically an area that's full of rampaging robots. So we have different elements, as you can see in this palette at the bottom. We can cycle through all our different weapons, and I'm actually using the same weapon for most of my slots. But you've got all the different elements like fire, ice, lightning, wind, dark and light. The class I'm playing as Force can use rods and cards. Cards are sort of a ranged weapon. Like if you've played Phantasy Star Online, you might recognise that weapon as Hidogata. You actually throw them, and so you can use them as a ranged attack. But you see how it hovers there for a little bit? What you can do is throw it, then charge technique, and actually attack from that range. So it allows the Force to attack, or another option for it is to throw it, and then use a recovery technique, so you can actually heal your party members from miles away. Obviously it takes a little bit of skill to get used to, but they are a really handy weapon. Roid is more just your generic weapon really that you can melee attacks with, but also use techs. Techniques work in two ways. You've got your standard techs, such as that. They do not a lot of damage, but obviously you can spam them, like, as you can see. The other option is to actually charge them up by holding the button, and you can see you get sort of audible noise when it's ready. And then you release that and it looks more powerful, and it actually does a lot more damage as well. Again, along the bottom you've got your health on the left hand side with your level, and the PP gauge, as you may see when I cast, actually goes down, so it's basically like your mana gauge from other games. And then you've also got the skill bar, which is just more skills. The little thing floating next to me, that's my mag, which you may recognise those things if you played the original Phantasy Star Online. Basically he's a little robotic helper that flies with me. I feed him items every so often. He's actually hungry at the minute, which is why it looks like he's fallen asleep. When you feed him an item, he becomes more aware, and as you feed him more and more items, he'll level up, and he actually provides you with like bonus stats. He also has another ability which, when an enemy is near, he can actually shoot light magic at enemies. And there's also other little trigger abilities he can use, like he has a chance to revive me if I die, and he has a chance to heal me if I get to low health. So they are really, really handy. And like I say, if anyone's played Phantasy Star Online, they're very, very familiar. Right, so I think the best way now is to just crack on with the mission, and I'll explain things that happen as we go. So I'm using lightning magic here because most of the enemies in this area are actually weak to lightning. As you can see, we do have environmental hazards such as these spikes. If you touch those red lasers, it'll actually make the spikes stale, so it makes traversing it a lot more difficult. There is a dodge manoeuvre, which I've just used there, which you can use to get out of situations. There's also these hazards, which are these explosive barrels. If I attack those, they'll start smoking, and if they get hit again, they'll explode. If you're anywhere near with them, they can almost kill you instantly. And then these little tablets here on the ground, they're like small cutscenes that enhance the story a little bit and reveal certain things about the characters. So it looks like there was no enemies that way. As you can see, we've got the map in the top right, so it's fairly easy to read, and there is a few ways of viewing the maps as well. So again, more spikes. And we've got an enemy, or enemies. Some of the enemies do remind you of old Phantasy Star enemies, such as those little flying ones are very similar to the Cannadines from PSO's Mines, and the guy at the back that you might be able to see, he's called a Signal Beat, which is a reference to an old robot ninja enemy from Phantasy Star. So it does have references, although they're not as widespread as you might think. So I'm using a technique there called Gizonde, which is basically like a chain lightning attack. If you think it looks a bit easy, it's because the enemies here are actually a little bit lower level than me, so it's not actually a fair mission. We do have other techniques as well, like we have Zonde, which is just a single lightning ball. Then we also have a tech called Stazonde. If I hit an enemy with that, and then hit them again, it actually detonates it and they start taking damage, as you can see. As you can see, the items drop on the floor, so we've got now money and weapons. The way the drops work in this game, anything you see on the floor is for you. So there's nothing like PSO where you would see a red box for a rare weapon and then go running towards it and hope you were the first one there. If you see anything drop on your screen, it is actually for you. The flip side of this though is that you can't trade items with other players unless you've bought either item trader ability or what's called a premium ticket, which is basically like a cash shop. It is one of my few frustrations with the game. It is free to play, but there is quite an extensive cash shop. None of it really benefits you massively, but things like extra storage and trading can be annoying if you don't have the cash shop. This is basically, there's two turrets here. The one on the left is actually an enemy turret that's been infected, and that'll attack me as I run past. The one on the right is actually another turret that I can use, and they spawn randomly in the map, so I can actually control them and just attack that turret and blow that away. So as you can see, the turret has taken some damage, and after a while it will actually explode if it takes too much. So we'll keep going. There's another story segment there and some more enemies. That enemy on the left there is actually one of the family of enemies called Darkers. They're effectively like the main evil force in the game. If you play Phantasy Star Online, you'll be familiar with the D-cell enemies, and if in Phantasy Star Universe you have the Seed. The Darkers are just basically the equivalent of those. So as you can see, my mag has actually started glowing. That's one of his trigger abilities, which actually allows him to make me invincible, so I can run over these spikes and they won't hurt me while he makes me invincible. It really is a handy ability. So we'll go on to the next block. And you might notice now, at the bottom gauge, number 8, that icon is now lit up. That's because I've actually released the ability to get a Photon Blast, which is basically an ability that my mag can use every so often once it's charged enough energy. The Photon Blast per force actually rapidly regenerates my PP, so while it's active I can basically nuke over and over and over again, and I won't really have to worry about burning out of PP while it's active. Very handy ability, which I'll show off on the next one then, mate. So this is the Photon Blast. So while that's on the screen, I can basically just nuke and nuke and nuke. And as you can see, my PP is just refilling. Looks like it's now ended, so now my PP goes back to normal. And these enemies remind me of one of the old enemies from PSO as well. Once you've done so much damage to them, they actually break apart, as you'll see here. And it breaks into its component parts, and then you have to kill the core of it, which is the bit that's flying round, and actually kill it off completely. They're a real pain for some bosses. So as you can see, he's now done for. So we'll continue on. This is an example of another feature of PSO2. It's called interrupt events or emergency codes. The random events that happen during the course of missions that put extra objectives in the way. For this one, we have to protect this NPC, Aki, and have to kill all these enemies marked in blue before she dies twice. Obviously, we fail that code if Aki dies twice. The flip side of it is that you do get extra experience and rewards, and you can get items and money rewards for completing these codes. There are actually a huge variety of emergency codes in the game that will make it to do loads of different things. This is probably one of the most common emergency codes, and it just requires you to kill a few enemies. But there's all sorts. There's ones that require you to protect down dropships. There's ones that will actually abduct one of your party to another part of the map and you have to go and rescue them. There's ones where enemies that are basically flying bombs will spawn and chase you and you have to avoid them for about 40 seconds. And there's even ones that can actually spawn a boss in the middle of the mission, which is always fun. There's also actually a feature called changeover code, which is when you have an emergency code happen and then another code will actually trigger from it. So for example, I could be killing these and then it makes do a changeover code. In that instance it hasn't. But occasionally that might have been a changeover code and then started another code. For example, a boss might have spawned after that. So things can get pretty crazy sometimes. And it is possible to actually have multiple codes going on at once. I just think it's a really cool feature of the game in that no two runs will ever be the same, because you'll always have different codes happening. So we've got little walkways here, and you can actually reverse the direction of these by accessing one of the computers over there, but it's not really worth doing. The missions I forgot to mention as well, they're actually split into different categories. So we've got 3 missions which are more like PSO, where you just run through the area, kill the boss at the end. Then there's Arthur's Quest, which is like this one, where you actually have a set of objectives. The objective for this one is to kill this rampaging, transforming robot at the end. I should get wiped out there by that exploding robot. There's also time attack missions, so if you're into speed running missions, there's those for you as well. And then there's obviously your story missions as well, which are just there to advance the main storyline of the game. I haven't really had much experience with those because obviously as this is a Japanese release, I don't really understand a lot of the spoken text. One thing I would say, if you are considering playing the game, it is worth trying the Japanese version. If you wanted to, I would recommend that you have at least a basic knowledge of katakana and basic knowledge of hiragana as well. If you know those, then you should be able to get by okay. And really, it doesn't take too long to learn nowadays, they're fairly simple. So that there is just a trap. Obviously if you're near those when they go off, you get wiped out. These guys are a pain as well, these large yellow robots. They actually spam heals on other enemies. It's really, really irritating when you get more than one of them at a time because they just stand there healing each other. But as I mentioned, there is actually other elements in the game. So what I'll do is on the next spawn I'll actually show some of the other elements. There is obviously a full map there as well if you need one. So I'll show off some dark elements there. The one on purple. So we've got Megid. Megid, if you play Phantasy Star, you'll know the instant kill test. It doesn't actually instant kill in this though. Oh no, friends just joined the Phantasy. So you do have teams and chat as well. Yeah, Megid in this basically just hits enemies, does a lot of damage, explodes like so, and also a chance of poisoning. As you can see, I used the dodge mechanic there to just get out of the way of that laser. You may actually see some of the other classes in the game, depending on what class my friend does. We also have other tech like the one tech that I think takes one apart from Force Flare takes is Ramegid. Ramegid basically just rain gets around you. And it completely blinds the screen, so anyone that's near the enemy just won't be able to see a thing. It's always fun. So like I say, I am controlling this with just a PS3 controller. I just use my analog sticks to move, my right stick to control the camera. There is actually a aiming mode as well, which is quite good for the Ranger class, because you can actually pinpoint where you want to shoot if you need to. That's just by pressing on the right stick. And you can jump. I access my palette at the bottom with the D-pad, and I press L2 I won't activate any of these. So for example, I want to buff, I highlight that and press L2, or hold it. That's the buff. And then you right click it to dodge. I'm not sure why I didn't hit me there, it reached me though. Also, it looks like my friend's actually also been playing a Tekka, which is like the other version of a caster. Tekka uses weapons like wands and can actually nail it a little bit better than Force. Whereas Force is a lot more magic focused. Tekka is a little bit more resilient, I suppose, as well. Force tends to die if you look at it, look at an enemy. Interesting thing to note as well, it is a bit like the Diablo game, in that when more people join the game, more enemies do start spawning. And we're also, I forgot to mention this, but we're also actually in a multi-party zone. That basically means we can actually randomly run into other people running the same mission, which I think is a really cool feature. So these guys here, it looks like we've also got another interrupt event, it looks like another pass code. So again, this is pretty much the same as that one, so it's protect my live until 9 enemies, which look like these enemies called Spardile, which are basically kamikaze bots, they just run at you and explode. As you can see, I'm using lightning text name, like, that's just because as a whole, robots in this game tend to be lightning. So as you can see there, we've got some experience, some money, and we also got a little item as well. So I suppose now really is a good time to talk about my impression of the game. I am a big fan of the game so far, particularly after the disappointment of Phantasy Star Universe. That was a really poor game really, could have been a lot more. I think Phantasy Star Online 2 is in the right direction for the most part. There are problems with it at the moment. For example, on the whole the game is a little bit too easy. The team keep doing changes to help the players, but they don't increase the enemy difficulty at the same time, so the game is a little bit easy in places, and even there is some very hard difficulty, the hardest really isn't that difficult. So that is a bit of a problem, but it's obviously something that could be fixed in a patch. One of the only other problems really that I have with the game is the cash shop. It is free to play, and it's actually free to download as well. But there is quite an extensive cash shop. Now, it's not like some games where you can buy high-end gear in the cash shop. There's nothing in there that will actually directly advantage you. But it's full of things such as there's outfits in there. For example, the clothes shop in the game, you can customise your character's appearance. In fact, the character creation is actually extremely in-depth. But a lot of the clothes you can only get through something called Art Cash, which is the game's equivalent of the cash shop currency. You can buy them from player shops for like regular in-game money, but obviously as these things cost real money to get, it tends to be very, very expensive. We've actually just had another emergency code start there as well, which is a rescue one. If you see that little guy over there is actually being tracked by a robot, and we have to like try and protect him by killing the enemies that are near him. It is actually quite a difficult code, so I know I said the game's easy, but this is probably one of the hardest codes. It's the fact that there's actually friendly fire on there, so if I get too close to the road, I'll actually hit them. Actually makes things very difficult. There is actually, unfortunately, an exploit with this code though, where if you run away from the enemies and you get far enough away, they'll actually just, the enemies will stop spawning near the distressed enemy. So you'll always have the code. But I think we're going to be okay. You know, there hasn't been too many enemies spawn. He did get hurt a little bit there from that robot exploding, but I might be able to heal him. No, it looks like I can't. Well, that could be a problem. But I think we're going to be okay because there's not many exploding robots. Oh no, he's actually just died. Oh well. That's how codes go, and then looks like one of the big robots spawned and just stood on him. Poor guy. So because we failed that, we don't actually get any points experience or anything. There's actually a running joke with that code, in that the enemy you're trying to save is actually, looks very like an Ewok from Star Wars. Those gold diamonds on the floor are just the money in the game. Many of us expect to take weapons as well. By the way, if anyone has any comments or anything, or wants to know anything about the game, just leave a message in the comments and I'll try and get back to you. This is one of my first actual recordings as well, so if there's anything you want to say or any changes, just let me know and we'll try things out. One of the irritating things about this mission is it's actually really hard to find the exit. The map is just huge. And also in multi-party zones, monsters will just continually spawn for a while. So you can just farm multi-party blocks if you want experience. I have placed a bit of a limit on it now in the monsters stop spawning after about 3.5 hours. Because they were actually having problems where it would have exploited in the past. And just basically power leveling and just staying in the same position for days. You may have noticed a little while ago as well that when I got hit by that enemy I actually flipped back onto my feet, so there is like a recovery aspect of the game, so you can recover quickly from getting knocked back. It is actually a skill you need to invest in though, because every class has a skill tree, but you can obviously, as you advance through the levels, you can unlock further abilities. I'm not sure if I mentioned this yet, but the way the drops work in this system, because obviously everyone knows these games are all about the loot. Anything I see on my screen, so for example this over here, that is for me. Like, my friends won't be able to see that item there. He'll probably have something else. So anything I see on my screen is mine. So it does avoid the old problem with the original Phantasy Star Online, where as soon as a rare weapon drops on the floor, everyone would just run as fast as they could towards it, and whoever got there first got it. It unfortunately did mean that a lot of the hunters in Phantasy Star Online got all of the rare items, but they could be right next to the enemy when it died, which obviously wasn't very fair. So in Phantasy Star Online 2, it's actually using the same system from Phantasy Star Portable 2 on the PSP, which is that anything on my screen is mine, anything on my friend's screen is my friend's. There is the ability to trade. Unfortunately though, as I've mentioned with the cash shop, you actually need to unlock a premium set, which does cost Arc cash to unlock the ability to trade. It's one of my real bugbears with the game. I really wish that the cash shop wasn't so extensive. It is still fairly early days with the game. I mean, it's only been out for a couple of months now really, so there's plenty of time to fix things, but I honestly don't see the cash shop changing it. It's too profitable for Sonic Team, so I really don't think it'll change. I've actually got some different enemies here. The big guy who looks like a huge insect, they're actually of a race called Darkers. Darkers are, if you played the old Phantasy Star game, there's always like a main evil race in it. And in Phantasy Star Online it was the B-cell organisms, and in PSU it was the seed, but in Phantasy Star Online 2 the Darkers are the main enemies, and they can pretty much spawn anywhere. There is actually a darker boss called Dark Ragnar that can spawn in any mission, providing it's a multi-party block, so it could actually spawn in this block, but it's completely random, like I say. It does add an element of replayability to the game, because you're never going to have two runs exactly the same. So those dark enemies are actually ways to fire and light, so I'll show off cards using some light text. So as you can see, I basically throw the card, like that, and if I throw it at a distance I can actually attack from range, so like so. So it allows the force to actually stay back in really dangerous situations, and the downside is that obviously it does take a little bit of getting used to, and it does mean that if you throw on a card and then all of a sudden you really need to heal yourself, you'll cast from where the card was until the card disappears, so you do need to plan ahead a little bit. Anyone who's actually played Phantasy Star Online might actually recognise this card weapon as Pitagata. Just a little paper doll with that throw. A bit weird, but I'm part of Phantasy Star Online weapon. What that reminds me, actually, one of the weapons in the game is actually a tuner, which you use as a sword. It's really, really weird. There's some very strange weapons in the game, but for the most part it's pretty generic, or as generic as a futuristic combatant base. So we're entering block 3 here. Now block 3 in this mission is actually the boss fight. We're going to fight an enemy called Tranmiser, which is a big transforming robot. Like I said, this mission is actually a little bit under my level, so it won't be very hard, but it's just to give you an idea of what the boss fights are like. They are on various different scales, and one of the good things about the boss fight is, if you have more than one player, if anyone other than the party leader gets in the portal as well, they can actually fight more than one. So that's the Tranmizer. I love the enemy design in this game, there is a bit of reskinning involved, like more and more. So as you can see here, we've actually got 2 Tranmizers plus additional enemies to fight. Most of the bosses in this game have weak spots. On Tranmizer, when he does that jump, he opens up the pod on his back, which is that glowing part, that's his weak point. So as you can see, I'm doing like over 2,000 damage a hit there, so when it closes, it drops by half. So hopefully Tranmizer will do his transforming ability. He has 2 different forms he can use during the battle. Like at the minute he's in his main combat form, which is melee form, so I'll just try and like attack him with melee back. So hopefully one of them will change over. There, so you can see, you can see this one at the back is actually changing to like a tank mode. Again, the weak point is they're pointed a bit on its back, but you need to watch out for a whole load of different attacks now. Whereas this guy over here is still in his robot mode. So it is a pretty cool boss fight this. There are loads of different bosses in the game, like you've got the typical dragon fight, but then you've also got, I mean, one of the fights is actually against a huge battleship. I mean, I won't upload that yet because I think it'll spoil it for anyone who's interested, but it's a huge battleship fight where you have to destroy all of the weapons on it. Extremely fun fight, and it's just overly epic. So I do need to watch out here because those missiles would almost kill me perfectly. Yeah, as I said though, the bosses in the game can actually spawn in the middle of missions randomly. So if I was running through a mines mission, this guy could actually appear just in the middle of the map. And it is actually possible for him to show up in his own mission. So I could get him in the middle of the mission and then fight him as the boss as well. It's always funny when you get changeover codes in that situation. I have had it before where I've had a boss spawn and then the changeover code happens for another boss with the same type spawn, and then the boss is the actual boss fight at the end. If that makes any sense at all. So you can see I use Sazon there and he's taking damage over time, so hitting it with an electric charge. Which is pretty handy if you can't really get the enemy. So that's one of the Tranmizers dead. And as you'll see, he drops a red crystal which actually gives you all the drops. So I'm not sure why this guy's decided to go over here, but we'll go and kill him. There are status ailments in the game as well, generally use status associated with each element, so fire can burn enemies which does damage over time, so ice can freeze enemies, and obviously that immobilises them for a bit. And you've got lightnings that can shock enemies, which actually makes them stagger every so often and makes them interrupt some of their attacks. There is winds, which causes an effect called Mirage, which I believe lowers the aggro rate of the enemy, so it might stop attacking you for a bit. Light can confuse enemies, which makes them attack other enemies. And dark poisons enemies, and then which does damage over time again. It explodes and burns, so it does a lot more damage. And there's some enemies that are immune to burn but take poison, and some that are immune to poison but take burn. Well, every element has its place, really. There are a couple of techs in the game that aren't really worth using, but for the most part, it's fair balance. And for anyone wondering, there is PSO throwbacks in the game. I've mentioned briefly that there are some enemies that resemble PSO enemies, but there are some PSO weapons in the game as well. Things like the Soul Eater, and there's also the weapons from other Phantasy Star games as well, such as Clarity V Sass from Phantasy Star Portable 2. So there are some throwbacks, but it's not loaded with them as a lot of people thought it might be. So anyway, that will conclude the run, and we'll go back to the camp ship and get our reward. So at the end of every mission you get a completion ranking, where you get X because you kill loads of enemies. It gives you a little bit of extra money. So that's probably about it for this video. That's a quick look at Phantasy Star Online 2. Like I say, it's out for the PC and it's going to release for Vita and smartphones, and at the minute it is a Japanese release only, but it's definitely worth checking out. The cash shop is a bit of a problem, but overall it is a very fun game, and I think that once it releases in the Western world, I think it will be received fairly positively. So I'll leave it there for now. I think I may do some more videos showing off the other classes, but this has been a brief look at Force. I may do Hunter and Ranger in other videos and show you some other areas in the game. But yeah, that's a quick look at Phantasy Star Online 2. It should be out towards the end of 2012, maybe more likely to be 2013. Thanks for watching.